In 1972, the Forest Service Northern Region floated a proposal that by 1974, a permit system for horse use would be required within the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Horse folks thought it a policy driven by bias. This details the formation of backcountry horsemen and their defense against what they deemed prejudice against the use of horses in wilderness. It was in a hunting camp in the shadow of the Wall Creek Cliffs where three men decided they could not wait for common sense, that they must organize to ensure Bob Marshall Wilderness trails remained open for saddle and pack stock. The men who arrived at the concept evolving into backcountry horsemen were friends and neighbors from Columbia Falls, Montana, as well as wilderness traveling companions. They were Ken Osk, switchboard wireman for the Bonneville Power Administration, passed over the Great Divide in December 2014, was a Moses for backcountry horsemen through 41 years of close involvement. The late Dennis Swift, forestry degree, smoke jumper, mill foreman. Denny is BCH's claim to conservation fame. Father was Ernie Swift, head of National Wildlife Federation. Aldo Leopold was neighbor and father's friend. Roland Cheek, safety director for Montana's largest wood products firm. Part-time outfitter and guide, newspaper columnist, radio show host, magazine writer, and book author. Returning home, still brainstorming over the desired shape and purpose of their proposed new Horsemen's Association, the three sought added help. Delane Fulton, retired school administrator, offering both talent and diplomacy, was invited to join the team. Not intending our new group to surprise, we scheduled meetings with Forest Service and Glacier Park people to explain that our vision was to develop an educational and service group. Attitudes were favorable, but with some reservations. An organizational meeting was scheduled for January 17, 1973 in a Columbia Falls grade school gymnasium. A big crowd turned out, including several from the Forest Service, as did reporters from newspapers and a television film crew. Backcountry Horseman was chosen for the new group's name. Roland Cheek was elected president. Their first board of directors included a Forest Service district ranger, a district resource forester, and a Montana state legislator. The Forest Service's proposed plan for the Bob Marshall called for removal of most man-made structures within the wilderness, including many of the fine old cabins constructed during the early years at so much cost and time and labor by skilled craftsmen. Removal of administrative cabins within the wilderness may have struck our members as crazy and a waste of taxpayer money, but the new plan also called for removing bridges spanning dangerous stream crossings, affecting both visitor experience and public safety. Then there was the problem of a permit system for riding horses into the Bob Marshall Wilderness, insanity in the minds of members of backcountry horsemen, especially given that the Bob was generally recognized as some of America's greatest wilderness horse country. More great horse country. Our new backcountry horsemen objected to the idea of requiring permits for horseback travel in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, to destruction of Forest Service cabins, and to the removal of informational signs. But still, our objections to the heavy hand of overmanagement in the Bob had yet to capture public attention. Then see, there's this bridge, or there was this bridge at Salmon Forks, at their own documents, called among the most dangerous stream crossings in the Bob Marshall. Unfortunately, the abutments of this vital bridge was allowed to be washed away. Forget about the tree that was allowed to topple across the bridge. The real problem was the undercut abutments. The bridge was condemned, the first to be removed from the Bob Marshall. It was a rallying point for which our group had been lucky. we determined to go to war. Saving the Salmon Forks Bridge became a rallying cry. The problem was easy enough to dramatize. First photo upstream from the bridge. Second photo, the exit trail from the ford constructed by Forest Service crews in lieu of a bridge. The group of wilderness horsemen and women did not limit their reaction to criticism, but responded to problems caused by horse users by compiling a shirt pocket guide on good handling techniques. The booklet was offered free as handouts through Forest Service offices in the region. The shirt pocket size 60-page guide by a Ken Osk-led committee to help wilderness horseback travelers be light on the land proved immensely popular, and that first 5,000 press run was soon reprinted by demand over and over again. Meanwhile, backcountry horsemen volunteers fanned out on needed National Park Service and U.S. Forest Service work projects. Here, a Dennis Swift work crew completed a loading chute. Dennis and Park Service liaison Bob Morey on left. Swift's work crews cleared 100 miles of trails during that first year, constructed a dozen horse handling features at trailheads, and packed out garbage left by slovenly horsemen, backpackers, and sometimes even Forest Service trail crews. With bridge removal at one of the most dangerous water crossings in the Bob Marshall, the group found their cause to attract broad support. Boy Scout troops, outfitter groups, saddle clubs, as well as individuals joined in calling for a public hearing. A public hearing on removing the Salmon Forks Bridge was scheduled. A large crowd attended. Only one person spoke in favor of removing the bridge. Many condemned the idea. Any attempt to fan animosity failed. No hiking group favored removal. The agency decided they favored a bridge across Big Salmon Creek, but said no funds were available for the job. What's needed, we asked. Cement and bridge planking alone required tremendous amounts of horse and mule loads for many miles into the wilderness. We rolled up our sleeves. We'll help. The job ahead took careful planning, guided by professional packers such as Dave Morris, a board member of the club. There's reason for the odd loads on Dave's horses. Much of the 20 miles to Salmon Forks was cut along steep hillsides. The planks hung down into the right side abyss. The Meadow Creek Trailhead looms large in the history of backcountry horsemen because it was the staging area for the club's greatest ever service project. We planned 2 stages for the 40-mile round trip. The first 10-mile stage would be to the Black Bear Ranger Station, then return to Meadow Creek, a 20-mile day. The following weekend, we returned to the Black Bear cabin to overnight, then completed the transport to Salmon Forks, again overnighting at Black Bear. Loading up, John Ladenburg holds the horse's head. His son Bill holds the planks far end. I'm leaning into the horse to keep him from shifting away from the planks while Dave Morris lashes him into place. Off to the right, Ken Osk managed a 90-pound sack of cement. Dave Morris, longtime professional outfitter, leads his pack string in the background. His brother Lester leads 3 of the Morris's fine Tennessee walking horses in the foreground. How do I know it's Lester? Only a Morris leads Morris horses. It struck me while posting these photos that we may have been the only BCH club ever to be covered by a Pulitzer Prize photojournalist. Below, Mel Reuter, editor of the widely respected Hungry Horse News, was at the time Montana's only Pulitzer Prize winner. Bridge planks scattered about on the ground, as well as managed 90-pound sacks of cement. One already loaded pack horse in the background, others standing at ready. Unfortunately, the only 2 recognizable men are Roland Cheek with cap and newspaper editor Mel Reuter. There were 180 3x10 bridge planks, 9 feet long, strapped 2 together. 2 planks on one side of the pack animal offset with 90 pounds of cement. The loads looked awkward but balanced great, and they allowed the pack animal to better keep his footing on the narrow trail. 90 pack horses made the 40 miles from Meadow Creek to delivery at Salmon Forks and back, but logistics required hay at the Black Bear halfway point, plus grain for ponies and groceries for cowboys and cowgirls. The Black Bear cabin might never have experienced such a crew. Our strings ran the gamut of a single old Dobbin pulled in from the back 40 clear up to the Morris's 10-horse strings of beautiful Tennessee walking horses. The truth is that the many 1 or 2 family horses at least equaled the big strings of our professional packers. Crossing the Meadow Creek Gorge at the trail's beginning, we had big numbers of 1 and 2 pack horses of BCH members hauling planks to Salmon Forks. They matched the big strings of outfitter members like Morris and Cheek. Pictured left to right are Kenny Averill, Roland Cheek, Dave Morris, Lester Morris, half hidden behind Dave. My son Mark is perched on the stack of planks along with another young lad. We were eating lunch prior to deadheading empty pack strings back to Black Bear. All told, the fledgling Horseman Club in remote Montana packed materials that equaled a freight truckload. They did so on their own livestock for 4 days and many miles deep into the Bob Marshall wilderness to replace a bridge, allowed to crumble into ruin. With an at-last commitment to replace the bridge across dangerous Big Salmon Creek, the agency proved anxious to complete the reconstruction. A few backcountry horsemen sort of hung around to watch and help. The first step in rehabilitation for the Salmon Forks Bridge was to divert water flows from the bridge abutments. Then to pour new fittings and realign the old abutments. Necessary building materials were gathered from surrounding forests, cut to proper lengths, then peeled, and in some cases treated prior to use. Then replacement began in earnest. Those guys were professionals. The rehabilitation and reconstruction of the Salmon Forks Bridge deep within the Bob Marshall wilderness was a vision to behold. To see the restored bridge after the heated process of evaluation, rejection of proposed management we thought in error, our resistance that benefited the public and the public's resources to understand that democracy in action has its own rewards. However, let's never forget backcountry horsemen's willing collaboration, sweat, toil, and monetary contribution to make it happen. Here's a current photo of the Salmon Forks Bridge taken by Ralph Hopkins. The struggle over the Salmon Forks Bridge, while perhaps a trivial affair in the big scheme of things, marked a turning point in the growing bias of some land managers against the use of horses on public lands. While only a symbol, the bridge proved a rallying cry, not only for horseback riders and those sympathetic to the idea of horses as vital components of our Western heritage, but to other land managers less than enamored with where their leaders seemed headed. As a result, the faulty doctrine that would have closed public lands to horses seemed ended. While some evidence of that drift remains, by and large, a wilderness dogma that holds horses hostage has been in retreat for over 40 years. The history of the founding and activities of the earliest days of backcountry horsemen has been brought to you by Backcountry Horsemen of the Flathead, formerly simply Backcountry Horsemen when we were the only BCH club in America. Backcountry Horsemen of the Flathead is proud of what we believe to be our example of equine opportunity based on a guaranteed philosophy of education and service to a backcountry resource we cherish and protect. May all other backcountry horseman clubs across America currently climbing toward 170, from Pacific Tidewater to Atlantic shores and from the Coast Range to the Appalachians, continue to hold our same values in the future as they've done in the past.